Call the August meeting of the Goochland County Planning Commission to order. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you guide us in our deliberations tonight to remember that we are representatives of the people and we follow all the guidelines by the county through our comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinances. We thank all those who are here tonight to participate in this discussion that is the very essence of a free democracy, and we hope everyone arrives home safely in the rain. Amen. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Are there any additions, changes, postponements?
Did you want to open it up for citizen comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Everyone has a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any additions, corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any citizens here want to make a comment or anything that's not on our agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll close the citizen comment period.
We do have one request to change the order of the public hearing.
That's correct. The request would be under our public hearing items 8 that cases 4 and 5 on the agenda item, those being District 5 RC 2023-00010 and CU 2023-00011, be moved to the first public hearing of the night.
Do I have a motion or any comment?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Motion approved. All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
We do have one action item before the commission tonight. It will not come before the Board of Supervisors. It does require a motion and a vote. This is for tentative plat review, District 4, MAJT 2022-7, Mosaic at West Creek, application by HHH Hunt, Mosaic LLC, requesting approval of a revised tentative subdivision plat for a 497-lot subdivision. The tentative plat is required by Article 8, Section 2 of the County Subdivision Ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Ray Cash, Assistant Director of Community Development. As Ms. Parker said, this is an adjusted tentative plat review. This is a plat that's been before the commission several times before in different forms. The total Mosaic acreage is 207.839 acres. It is an RPUD. It's located inside of our prime economic development area. What we have here on the screen is generally, this is the Mosaic development, the areas that have been recorded. Also extends a little further. The area that's under revision tonight is specifically this area outlined in red that's currently vacant. Is proposed Section 7 of the development. Here is the proposed first sheet of the tentative plat, which really gives you the overall review of Mosaic itself. The area outlined in the circle in yellow is the area that is proposed to be amended. And I'll go and zoom in on the next part to really explain what the purpose is of this amendment. In the upper corner, top corner, is an area that was originally proposed to be the connection from this section of development back out to Mosaic Creek Boulevard. The applicant, at the time of actually trying to construct it, encountered some real geological and topographic issues, primarily a lot of rock in the area. There are homes already developed directly adjacent that face on Mosaic Creek Boulevard. Their request was, we'd like to eliminate this entrance and allow the lots to access via the internal streets here, and then revise the layout accordingly. From the county's perspective, the idea is we want that area accommodated for. The area now, basically, they're going to have to adjust the open space of Section 2B and revise the open space here. I'll show you what the original layout compared to what it is here before you. The other item that would affect other type of properties, actually, there is the revised stub road location that goes to the adjacent properties towards the west. The stub road location goes to a slightly different location, but it actually goes to the same property owner that owns both of those properties. It satisfies the requirements of VDOT as well as the county's preference for stub road connections. So the original layout, again, the area circled in yellow was primarily where it was on the previous tentative plat. As you can see here, there was, in the red circle, there was the road coming off Mosaic Creek Boulevard and the general location of the stub road. It did still previously connect internally to the other section of the subdivision. So back originally, this property was developed in March of 2018. Later, the applicants came forward and asked for an amended zoning condition, and really that related to the number of lots, a balance between townhouse lots and single-family lots. This section under review tonight is a single-family subdivision section, detached, not attached. The tentative plats approved previously were for 476 lots, and in June of 2019, 491 lots. The one before you tonight is for 497 lots. The proffered overall density for the development is 500 age-restricted units, so we're still within compliance of allowed lots. As I laid out before, really there's a reason for this change necessitated by somewhat what's been encountered on the site during the construction process. The reconfigured layout also relocated the stub road, eliminating road and revising the stub road location. It's one of those things we feel really needs to come back before the commission to evaluate the change in the tentative layout. Staff does consider that the plan is consistent with the approved proffered conditions. It also meets subdivision ordinance requirements. So staff has recommended certain conditions to ensure that we're meeting the zoning, plan of development, and subdivision ordinance requirements. Those are in your staff report. If you would like, staff could go through those conditions. But generally, you're guiding as we typically do with conditions, ensuring the development process takes place in accordance with our ordinance. One thing is to ensure also that stub road location is converted to open space eventually, as they are two separate sections. So, of course, staff is available for any questions, and the applicant is present as well.
Mr. Cash, you said that the new location of Stub Road is on the same is by the same owner, the lot.
Right. It's two side-by-side parcels owned by the same individuals. The location would seemingly, by its location, be able to still serve either parcel.
Still has the same amount of, just taking this away, it's not going to take an entrance and exit away that you plan on having.
It was planned on to connect that way. However, the way the access is done still does comply with our requirements. We would prefer to maintain the access we recognize by the existing developed lots around it, as well as what has been encountered, which would cause a very awkward road situation. We support, staff supportive of the change. We're able to make sure we maintain the utility, water and sewer pipe locations and easements through there as well.
Fire and rescue didn't have any problem with the
No, sir.
access.
Right, they were okay with the change.
Does the applicant like to speak? No applicant?
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Rideout with H.H. Hunt. I would be happy to answer any questions, but we agree with the staff report and been working with them on this for quite a long time since we encountered the rock issues on the site. So we appreciate all the effort they put into it and helping us through this situation so that we can continue to develop the community as we close it out.
Is this the last section that you all have to develop?
We have one more smaller section, which I think is around 30 homes that we'll probably start developing later this year.
So you're staying under or at your number?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir. We'll be under our total density cap for the project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any commissioners have any comments? Have a motion?
move that the commission approve the revised tentative plat, MAJT 2022-00007 for Mosaic at West Creek, subject to the conditions presented.
A second? Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved.
The motion to approve passes on a 4-0 vote. All right, bear with me one second while I change around our public hearing items.
We'll give you a minute. A lot of presentations.
Okay. These two cases we will be hearing are companion cases. Staff will be making a combined presentation. Each item will require a separate motion and vote. District 5, RZ 2023-10, application by Hermitage Country Club Incorporated, requesting rezoning of a 3.813 acre portion of 9.574 acres from residential general R3 to agricultural limited A2 with proffered conditions at 3 Quail Run Drive on tax map number 5821C90. The comprehensive plan designates this area as a rural enhancement area. The companion case CU 2023-11, application by Hermitage Country Club Incorporated, requesting an amendment to the conditional use permit CUP, case CU 1971-2, for golf course, driving range, and country club to add a 3.813 acre portion of 9.574 acres at 3 Quail Run Drive on tax map number 5821C90. The property is currently zoned residential general R3, but in companion case RZ 2310, the applicant is requesting the property be rezoned to agricultural limited A2 with proffered conditions. The CUP is required in the agricultural limited A2 district by County Zoning Ordinance Section 15112. The comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement area.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Again, for the record, my name is Ray Cash, Assistant Director of Community Development. This is one of those cases, the description inside the ad may be more longer than what is proposed here. As she mentioned, there is two cases. First is to rezone from residential general R3 to agricultural limited A2, and then the second is to amend the conditional use permit that's really related to the adjacent Hermitage Golf Course. The area of the county is generally eastern central part of the county. What I've outlined here in the aerial, if you can see the area outlined in yellow, that is the portion of the property that's being rezoned. This is actually a lot, as we'll see in the next slide, inside the Broad Run subdivision. The remainder of the lot, so you see the yellow again here, the remainder of the lot would still be viable and buildable. It needs to be, once this zoning has taken place, it would be split and added to the country club property, and that is one of the proffers and conditions. The comprehensive plan for this area is rural enhancement. There's a couple pods of neighborhoods that are surrounded by the golf course, if you're familiar with the area. So the first rezoning request is to ask for a rezoning of a portion of the 9.571 acre, a portion of 3.813 acres. The intent of this by the applicant is to add the rezoned portion of the property to the Hermitage Country Club for golf course use. The applicant has also proffered specific provisions, and that relates to the parcel plat and conceptual plan that we'll show in a second. They've also limited and excluded other A2 uses for the property, saying that the property will be only used as part of a driving range landing area or a championship tee box for the golf course. So that ensures over the long term that it will stay exactly what they're proposing. They are also offering limited improvements permitted on site. This was the concern of the neighborhood, and they've done a proffer to ensure that they're really not going to develop the property or put a lot of structures on it, lights and things like that. They're additionally providing a 50-foot buffer along the northeastern property line that will be adjacent to the remaining residential property of Broad Run subdivision. So before you on the left is the plat that was submitted as Exhibit A. I've outlined in red here really the 50-foot buffer. As seen, it would separate the area from the remaining residential parcels. Additionally, it also serves as a good little extra protection for any type of balls that may come in the area or a type of activity. We further condition that proffer in the conditional use case I'll talk about in a moment. On the overall sort of site layout for how this operates, this upper area here, this strange polygon, is the area that's under review. As you can see, it's for a driving range, so that typically the balls would be landed back there. There's also reference in the proffers the ability for them to put other types of netting or some other type of feature up to make sure that they're protecting the houses and keeping the balls from going in that buffer all the time. So for moving on to the conditional use portion that's being presented, that case tonight. There was a previous conditional use permit on this property back in 1971. This is back when conditional use permits would be heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that was for a golf course and country club use on the property. The CUP included a variety of conditions related to the operation and construction of the golf course country club. Those conditions will remain coming forward tonight. Those were really about need to connect to a road here. You're not, this is how you get your water, and that you're under the supervision of the various state authorities, which they would be today as well. There was a proposed amendment to add the additional property, which will be used for a driving range, landing, or championship tee box for the golf course area. And I'll say that we want to add the additional property. So all the existing conditional use permit conditions will remain. We're looking for 2 new conditions, and that's relating to the preservation, maintenance, and permitted activity within the 50-foot buffer along the northeastern property. It goes along with it's sort of companion to the proffer that they've presented. It just gives us the ability to make sure that visible screen stays maintained. And then there's also the requirement that this new property be given over or added to the golf course property, which that way it's easily maintained under one ownership, management, and easily we can tie the 2 conditional uses together, the conditional use together in a conditional use activity. So, of course, staff is available for any questions, and the applicant's representative is here.
Mr. Cash, who currently owns that piece of property?
I believe currently it's Mr., it's right on the tip of my tongue, current owner.
Sorry, it's right on the tip of my tongue. It's not Mr. Brandt. No.
Mr. Brandt sold it, okay. I was thinking Mr. Brandt still owned it, sorry about that. I can find it.
It says not Mr. Brandt.
It was Mr. Brandt, it's not his now. Let me pull the plat.
I'm sorry. Mr. Levin. Mr. Jerry Levin.
Jay Levin.
Who?
Jerry Levin.
Oh. And it looks like this is basically an extension of the existing driving range. just adding
Right.
more.
Yes, and add a more area for a landing area. Yeah.
Okay. Does the applicant want to speak?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Ross Allen, just for the record. I wanted to answer any questions that you may have directly from the applicant's representative.
What's the yardage, total yardage that was indicated on the plan?
I don't know really off the top of my head, but I think it's going to extend it to about 350 yards.
Well within your range.
Well outside of mine.
Thank you. I'll now open it up for the public. Do they have any comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. The board have any comments, questions for anyone?
Ms. Jackson, should we motion on this individually or hear the
Yeah,
case in motion?
so you just had the 1 public hearing, then the 2 motions, and the rezoning would come first because that's what gives it the zoning to allow the CUP.
I move that the commission recommend approval. Nice. I move that the commission recommend approval of rezoning RZ 2023-00010 for a 3.813 acre portion of 9.74 acres on 3 Quail Run Drive from residential general R3 to agricultural limited A2 with proper conditions as presented.
Has been moved and second.
Go ahead. I'll
Did we have,
second
a- oh, who was the second?
it myself. Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carried.
The motion to recommend approval passes on a 4-0 vote. This case will be scheduled for public hearing before the Board of Supervisors on September 5th, 2023, with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. Our next, oh, and then we need our conditional use. Motion and vote for the conditional use companion.
Do we need to hear it individually? I'll make a motion to recommend approval. Do we have a second? Okay. So
All in favor? The
yeah,
motion
I'll-
seconded?
I'll read the motion.
Okay.
Yes, just to make sure, yes, sir. I move that the commission recommend approval of conditional use permit CU 2023-00011 for golf course, driving range, and country club at 3 Quail Run Drive, subject to the imposed conditions as presented.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. What's next?
Our next item is District 1, CU 2023-9, application by Lindsay and Casey Davenport, requesting a conditional use permit, CUP, for a detached accessory family housing unit on 8.05 acres at 5425 River Road West on tax map number 26202F. The property is zoned agricultural general A1. The CUP is required by County Zoning Ordinance, Section 15102, in accordance with Section 15285A. The comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement area.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Members of the Commission, Tom Coleman, Principal Planner. As Ms. Barker said, this application is a conditional use permit for an accessory family housing unit. This is located in the western portion of the county. Looking at the aerial photo, the area does sort of reflect a low-density rural residential character. The subject property is zoned agriculturally. The surrounding properties either share the agricultural zoning, and some of them are zoned rural residential. The subject property and all the surrounding properties are designated as rural enhancement area in the comprehensive plan. This application is generally consistent with rural enhancement area land use designation. There was a community meeting held in June. One adjacent property owner attended and expressed support for the CUP. Just a quick summary of the application. It is about an 8-acre parcel. There's an existing about 1,600 square foot dwelling on the property that was constructed in 2018. They are requesting to construct about an 800 to 900 square foot detached dwelling. They'd indicated that one of their parents will be residing in the dwelling. They also said they may use it as their private office. That would be allowed by right and would not require a CUP approval. The conditions you'll see with this are similar to these types of applications. The first one would allow the detached accessory family housing unit. The second one would require that a resident of the principal dwelling reside in the dwelling. The third one would prohibit a separate rental of the structure of the dwelling. The fourth one would require the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. The fifth one would require maintaining emergency access to the accessory structure. The number 6 would be for 5-year approval, and then the last one is our standard transfer of property to notify the county in case the property is transferred. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak? No? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody have any comments on this? None, we'll close the public comment period. Do I hear a motion or any discussion between the board members?
I move that the commission recommend approval of conditional use permit CU 2023-00009 for a detached accessory family housing unit at 5425 River Road West, subject to the imposed conditions as presented.
Made and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The motion to recommend approval passes on a 4-0 vote. This case will be scheduled for public hearing before the Board of Supervisors on September 5th, 2023, with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. Our next public hearing item is in District 3, CU 2023-8, application by William and Ashley Hines requesting a conditional use permit, CUP, for a detached accessory family housing unit on 3.16 acres at 2486 Log Cabin Road on tax map number 4320090. The property is zoned agricultural limited A2. The CUP is required by County Zoning Ordinance Section 15112 in accordance with Section 15285A. The applicants are seeking an exception to Section 15285A2, requiring only persons related to a resident of the principal dwelling to reside in the accessory dwelling, and Section 15285A3, prohibiting rental of the second dwelling separately from the principal dwelling. The comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Again, Tom Coleman, Principal Planner. As Ms. Parker said, this is a request for a conditional use permit for a detached accessory housing unit, and they are requesting 2 exceptions for the use standards as they apply to the detached accessory housing units. I'll go into that in a little more detail later in the presentation. This is centrally located just outside of the courthouse village. See from the aerial photo that this is located in a rural residential neighborhood just outside the courthouse village, and it does reflect sort of a low-density rural residential characteristic. The subject property and all the surrounding properties are zoned agriculturally, and the subject property and all the surrounding properties are designated as a rural enhancement area in the comprehensive plan. This is generally consistent with the rural enhancement land use designation. The comprehensive plan does support strategies to allow additional opportunities for varied housing types. There was a community meeting held in June. There were 2 attendees. The attendees had no concerns and expressed support for the application. This is about a 3-acre parcel. The applicants, or the main principal structure, the principal dwelling is about 2,700 square feet in size, and the applicants have indicated their intention to continue living in that principal dwelling. There is a detached structure. It's shown in the aerial photo there. It's about 1,600 square feet in size. The downstairs is unfinished, about 800 square feet in size. The upstairs, the living space upstairs is about 800 square feet in size. It includes 2 bedrooms, a full bath, a kitchen, and a living room. The upstairs was approved with a building permit in 1997, and it was formerly used as the home office for the owner's small business until their retirement in 2021. So there is no new construction planned if this application is approved. As I mentioned earlier, there is a waiver request from the use standards. Typically, when this type of application comes before the Planning Commission, it is for a detached accessory unit for a family member. So they are seeking 2 waivers. They are seeking a waiver from the requirement that only persons related to a resident of the principal dwelling can reside in the accessory dwelling, or only someone related to the resident of the principal dwelling can reside in the accessory dwelling. And they're also requesting a waiver from the prohibition of rental of the second dwelling separately from the main house. There is one limitation that I want to bring to your attention. The septic drain field on the site serves both structures, and it does have a capacity limit of 6 people. Therefore, the aggregate, the total occupancy of the site will be limited, strictly limited to that 6. So with the conditions, a couple of these are familiar to the Planning Commission, and I'll take a second to go over a couple of conditions that are more unique to this application. The first one would allow the detached accessory housing unit on the property. The second one would require the carbon monoxide and the smoke detector. The third one would allow the maintenance of the emergency vehicle access to the accessory living unit. Number 4, as mentioned earlier, there is an overnight occupancy limit, and so number 4 would limit them to 6 people until such time in the future if they were to expand the drain field, they could expand it up to 10 people. Number 5 is the use standard exceptions that I mentioned. So this, if this CUP is granted with these conditions, number 5 includes those 2 waivers or those 2 exceptions that I went over a moment ago. And again, it would be a recommendation for a 5-year approval to September 2028. And then our standard condition regulating the transfer or ownership of the property. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Have we allowed those 2 exceptions before in these cases?
Sorry, have they?
Have those exceptions, those 2 exceptions been allowed before?
There's one other dwelling unit in the courthouse that's comparable to this.
And it works well? Situation works? No
Yeah, I mean,
complaints?
there's no, not aware of any complaints, correct.
How long ago was that one approved?
That has come for one renewal. It was, don't quote me on the dates, but there was an approval in the past, and it did come forward with a renewal, I think 2 years ago, and it was renewed.
Thank you.
Do you know why these requirements were put in the original conditional use permit that they're trying to get out of?
Yeah, I mean, actually, when a part of the ordinance rewrite that we did a couple of years ago, there was an effort to sort of expand housing variety, the ability to provide housing. So the idea was to put conditions in the code to allow family housing units. So while that was specifically added to the code, in fact, if someone wants to do an attached unit, they don't have to get a conditional use permit. But with that, they also did specifically put in a waiver provision, saying with the CUP approval, that someone could request waiver from these use standards, and that's the application you see before you.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, I'd just like to introduce,
Please come up and give your name and address.
y'all could probably hear me anyway, I'm kind of loud, but. I'm Ashley Hines, and I'm here tonight with my husband, William Hines, sitting in the back right corner there. We reside at 2486 Log Cabin Road. Since our retirement in '21, just he and I are living there. There's no one else living in the main residence. So we don't feel like we're, putting a stress on anything at this point. And then we appreciate y'all's consideration and understand the conditions. And if there are any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak? Close the public comment. Board have any questions or?
Well, the statute was put there for a reason, I guess to, whatever to restrict, I guess, a lot of rental property in residential neighborhoods and et cetera. I can certainly sympathize with the applicant, but what I'm afraid of is this will set a precedence. I'm surprised that the last waiver didn't. And you're gonna, future cases are gonna say, well, you approved that one, why can't you approve mine? I think this is something that we need to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I sympathize with the fact that they've got a facility there that's sort of vacant, but the ordinance is pretty clear about accessory dwelling units. And I don't remember when the other one was approved.
Me either. I don't remember us giving it a waiver.
No,
There's only one other that's mentioned. There's only one other.
I don't want another one. So I just think it's once you start, letting the cow out the barn, you're letting a lot of them out. And I think this is one of those issues where it's important to kind of stick with what the code requires, the comprehensive plan and the zoning.
May I make one further comment?
Okay, you can come up and speak.
The one thing that I didn't mention, and I do understand y'all's consideration, I do. The other thing I didn't mention, and I don't think this, in this day and time, this will be the last time that this situation would come up. My husband and I did have our own business. We had our permit for our business in Goochland. We retired. Unfortunately, we retired with only Social Security. And what he and I draw together would not allow us to continue living in our home in Goochland. And our hope is to live and die there, so to speak. Of course, one day we may end up in the old folks' home. We realize that. But for the next foreseeable future, and we think in long term as 3 to 5 years anyway, even at our age of 70, 72, that we would be remaining here, and we'd like to stay in Goochland.
Thank you.
This is a 5-year application.
I understand your concerns, but it's a 34-lot subdivision, and over half of them have to drive by the sign, the zoning request sign to get in there. If they were concerned about their neighbors doing it, I think they would certainly be here to be in opposition. We are always talking about we need affordable housing. I mean, this is, affordable housing going to be available for a single person or who could be a teacher or a rescue member or a sheriff department or, any of those things. So, I mean, it serves a purpose. I mean, it may not be something we would want in some subdivision, but I mean, I guess this is about a 35 or 40-year-old subdivision, and no one is here to speak in opposition against it.
Do you know if you have a homeowners association?
We did for years when we first moved here, but that was, as soon as we had the road surfaced, that was dissolved.
So it doesn't matter, 'cause it's not in our purview. It's not in our purview. If they did,
Okay. I understand your concerns but I mean, every case would come before planning commission and supervisors.
That's the nice thing about it being a CUP.
I move that the commission recommend approval of conditional use permit CU-2023-00008 for a detached accessory housing unit at 2486 Log Cabin Road, subject to the imposed conditions as presented.
I'll second it.
Since this is a 5-year conditional use permit, I think I'll vote for it.
I'm glad the rest of you will vote for it.
You can do a roll call
Is that
vote.
just on the principle, I'm gonna vote against it. I'm certainly glad it's, most of you are for it. So, my vote is no.
Roll call vote for clarity, Mr. Myers?
Oh, baby,
Or just a roll call vote for clarity, your vote?
no.
Mr. Rockacharlie?
Yes.
Mr. Brewer?
Yes.
Mr. Duke?
Aye.
The motion to recommend approval passes on a 3-1 vote. This case will be scheduled for public hearing before the Board of Supervisors on September 5th, 2023, with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. Our next public hearing item is District 3, RZ 2023-7, application by Ingrid E. Vetter, requesting rezoning of 10 acres from agricultural limited A2 to residential limited R1 with proffered conditions to create one additional residential lot at 1600 Beaver Dam Creek Road on tax map number 5518-0130. The comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement. You will also find on the dais revised proffers, and those revised proffers will require a waiver of the deadline.
Do I hear a approval for a waiver?
You're welcome to wait till after the case if you like.
Mr. Chairman.
Let's do it now so we can get that.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the waiver of time limit for the proffers as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This does not change the vote on the condition, just the time limit.
Thank you again, members of the commission. Tom Comer, Principal Planner. As Ms. Parker said, this is a rezoning application of 10 acres. They are requesting rezoning from an agricultural district to a residential district to create a single-family residential building lot. This is sort of located centrally in the county. The subject property is in the Deerfield subdivision, and looking at the aerial photo, again, this is located in a low-density sort of rural residential area. The subject property is zoned, and all the surrounding properties are zoned, share the agricultural zoning, and the subject property and all surrounding properties also share that rural enhancement designation, rural enhancement area designation in the comprehensive plan. This application is generally consistent with the rural enhancement area land use designation. There was a community meeting in June. There were 6 attendees, including Planning Commissioners Patuck and Myers. The attendees expressed no concern at that time and conveyed their support for this request. Since subsequent to the community meeting, the staff has received correspondence. We've received 1 letter of support and 3 letters have expressed opposition. Generally, the opposition letters have objected to the creating of an additional lot that would be proposed with this application. Again, the applicant is requesting to create 1 new vacant 4-acre lot. The intent is to sell a 6-acre parcel that has the house on it, and to retain, the applicant indicated they would retain the vacant 4-acre lot for their personal use. The applicant indicated that the 6 acres is required to keep the dwelling and the detached garage, the drain field, the driveway, and all on the same lot. There is an easement for the new lot to maintain access to Beaver Dam Road. With the creation of 1 new lot, there is no capital impact model impact, so there's no cash proffer associated with this application. And what you have before you on the screen would be the conceptual plan that's submitted with the application. It shows the existing house and the driveway and the farmhouse with the garage and its proximity to Beaver Dam Creek Road. I'll also show that the rear of the property abuts Blakely Road, which is a private road. One of the changes they made to the proffers that you waived the time limits on earlier was to prohibit access to that private road. Again, the idea would be able to create 2 new lots. The average lot size would be about 5 acres for the 2 lots. There was 1 comparable rezoning approved in Deerfield in 2005 to create a new building lot. That created 2 building lots that were about 4 acres in size, but those were 2005 rules, which are different than the 2023 rules for our zoning district. The adjoining and nearby properties are all in either the Deerfield or the Hillcrest subdivisions. They range in size from about 2.1 to 10.4 acres. The median and really the plurality of the lots are about 5 acres in size. Again, the proffers that are in consideration for the Planning Commission, they did proffer to limit the subdivision to 2 lots. The property would be generally developed generally as you saw in the conceptual plan that we reviewed earlier. And again, that they added that condition that access to the property would be provided for Beaver Dam Creek Road, and they would not have access to Blakely Road. And that concludes our presentation. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
I don't have really too much to add.
My name is Ingrid E. Vetter, and I'm just asking for permission to do this. And I know I have some opposition from 2 neighbors, but I'm not asking to do anything illegal. I'd like to keep this piece of property for my granddaughter And
Mrs. Vetter?
I respectfully submit that
Is
request.
the intent for a family subdivision?
Excuse
For
me?
lack of better terms, is the intent for a family subdivision, for lack of better terms?
Yes.
Have you owned the property long?
Pardon me?
Have you been there a long time?
My husband bought the property in 1979, and yeah. If that's considered a long time.
In a lot of subdivisions, it's a real long time.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll open it up for public comment.
I'm one of the adjacent property owners opposed to it. My name is Jeff Craig. I live at 1552 Beaver Dam Creek Road. I lived in Goochland since 1995. I retired from Markel Corporation last year, and my wife and I have completely renovated our property from what was an abandoned 10-acre estate by Miss Christie, who owned it then. She died and her estate sold it to us. It was overgrown, 5-foot tall weeds. It was completely dilapidated house, and we spent 2 years practically rebuilding and renovating the place to make it the exceptional garden that it is. My wife promised the son of the deceased that she would make it a garden center again like her deceased mother had made it. She was a master gardener in Goochland, and we have planted hundreds of boxwoods, hundreds of peonies, hundreds of trees all over, and we've created an orchard and a huge garden. And it's just, we like being in our yard and in our garden, enjoying our time there. I've lived in Goochland, in Haydensville, Sandy Hook, and now Crozier, and this has been the most serene, beautiful place we've had. I was a recreation commissioner in 2001, and it's just hard for us to understand why, when there's a family way to break up a property and split it, it hasn't been taken, it's being rezoned. The last time a rezoning took place and a lot was split on Beaver Dam Creek Road, there was an increase of noise, traffic, ATVs, golf carts, mini bikes, motorcycles, trail bikes, up and down the road. Somehow I became the bad guy by calling the sheriff's department after calling VDOT and asking them to put a no ATV sign on Beaver Dam Creek Road. VDOT told me everybody knows that you can't ride ATVs on the road, so don't put signs up for it. So that's when the sheriff's department came and stepped in, and they did their duty, and the driving up and down the road stopped. Then, after that third time we had called the sheriff's department, the ATV drivers, the mini bike drivers, and everybody else decided to have a protest parade for our benefit, riding up and down, back and forth with 20 or so ATVs, motorcycles, antique cars, all kinds of stuff, like thumbing their nose at us. We were kind of, wow, what is going on? It's okay to scoff at the law, but we can't have the sheriff's department do what they're supposed to. So you ask, why am I telling you all this? Because, Miss Vetter is a very nice lady. She has a beautiful little dog. And for some reason, she allowed this group of ATV people to create a trail through her property that now circumvents our whole property, goes around it. If you pull it up that map again, you can see where our property is. And, on Mother's Day this year, somebody pulled in and started driving their ATV around the house, in the trail, down Beaver Dam Creek Road all day. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Sorry, your time is up, so.
Oh, I didn't know I had that time. Well, anyway, so we oppose it. Those are lots of the reasons. I've got more, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Farley Fitzgerald. I live at 1600 Beaver Dam Creek Road, which is right next door. My husband, Mike Street, is also here tonight. And Ingrid Vetter is a dear neighbor, dear friend, but we are in opposition to the subdivision. We sent a letter. We can add more details if needed, but the primary reasons for privacy, the subdivision went back right up to our property. Precedent is another concern within the neighborhood. And also, I believe, is it a covenant? I'm not quite sure of the correct term, but it actually prevents any subdivision of properties in Deerfield as well. So we respectfully want to put it in the record tonight that we are opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening. Thomas Zeta. I live on 1575 Beaver Dam Creek Road across from my sister-in-law. I don't know what block that gentleman lives on, but it isn't the block I live on. I've owned that property since 1980. I've moved on that property in 1990. When I bought it initially, it was 15 acres. Mr. and Mrs. Ham bought 3 of those acres, so it was subdivided in 1980. I still own the 12 acres that are left. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that subdivision has happened there back in 1980. Any questions, gentlemen, ladies?
Are you speaking in support of the case?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening. My name is Jean Ham. My husband, Robert Ham, is here also. We live directly across the street next to Tom Zedar. Our property is almost exactly across Ingrid Vetter's property. We have been there since 1980. There have always been ATV problems. The original owner, Keith Vetter, gave me permission to ride my horse through there. I did not make a trail and ride my horse through there, but I do not see how that conflicts with her plan which would not include allowing ATVs. As far as I know, you might want to ask her. I believe her plan does not involve including permission for ATVs to go through there. I have had trouble with them since we built and had horses, and ATVs came and scared my horses and ruined some trails that I had been given permission to use. At the end of the dead end of the road. And I did not receive much help from the sheriff's department. I didn't ask the sheriff's department, actually. I didn't expect help, but those ATVs have left. I have not heard any. They're not, I don't understand. I think maybe, I don't expect that would be a problem in the future. I don't understand that it's a problem now because I walk daily and I have not encountered any. And so I don't understand the problem. I'm speaking in favor of Ingrid Vetter's proposal. The newest neighbor, I was familiar with his property that is adjacent to Ingrid's and the previous tenant. She had a garden. She kept the entire property. She took care of it, and now most of it is grown up wild. I happy to have orchards there. I'm really confused about the oppositional argument. If you might want to get more clarification about whether the ATVs would continue, if that's the major objection. But I am in support of any type of redivision or rezoning that Ingrid would like to do.
Thank you.
We have 29 acres, and we don't have any opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ham, can you state your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. 1601 Beaver Dam Creek Road.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? We'll close the public comment period.
I do. Just one last.
Yeah, you can rebut.
I think if you were ever to visit Beaver Dam Creek Road, there might be one day where somebody takes a bicycle up the road. But by far, it is a very quiet neighborhood, very quiet. And it's nowhere near a circus. And I think we can all live respectfully and peacefully there, because it is peaceful. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, frankly, I don't see how one additional home on 4 or 5 acres of land is gonna affect anybody's privacy, peace, and tranquility or property rights. And I didn't see a thing in here about the applicant allowing ATVs or anything else.
I have basically a question for our attorney. It seems to be an indication that the covenants for the subdevelopment prohibit this subdividing. So is that a moot point for us?
I think so, because I'm not understanding that this has any proffers on it. It's an older re-subdivision, I think maybe 80s, late 80s. So, yeah, the covenants they don't bind the county. If there was a proffer that said no lots could be further subdivided, we'd be bound by that. But there are no proffers on this property.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
I move that the commission recommend approval of rezoning RZ 2023-00007 for 10 acres at 1600 Beaver Dam Creek Road from agricultural limited A2 to residential limited R1 with proper conditions as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None here.
The motion to recommend approval passes on a 4-0 vote. This case will be scheduled for public hearing before the Board of Supervisors on September 5th, 2023, with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. Our next two items are again companion cases. Staff will be making a combined presentation, and each item will require a separate motion and vote. District 4, RZ 2023-8, application by SP Real Estate Holdings, LLC, requesting proffer amendments to rezoning case RZ 2015-4 to include automobile sales and automobile repair as permitted uses and to replace the previously proffered conceptual plan and related proffers for 6.93 acres at 12501 Broad Street Road on tax map number 59-3 to FP7. The property is zoned Business General B1 with proffered conditions. The comprehensive plan designates this area as prime economic development, and companion CU 2023-10, application by SP Real Estate Holdings LLC, requesting a conditional use permit CUP for automobile sales and automobile repair on 6.93 acres at 12501 Broad Street Road, tax map 59-3 to FP7. The property is zoned Business General B1 with proffered conditions, but in companion case RZ 2023-8, the applicant is requesting proffer amendments to allow automobile sales and automobile repair as permitted uses. The CUP is required by County Zoning Ordinance 15242. The comprehensive plan designates this area as prime economic development.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Ms. Jackson, I'm Jamie Sherry, Director of Community Development. As Ms. Parker said, we do have two companion cases. There is a proffer amendment to a rezoning case that was approved back in 2015. That was for a memory care facility and associated uses. The applicant's proposing to amend the proffers to allow, in addition to was approved back in 2015, to add a car dealership as a permitted use. As Ms. Parker said, a CUP is required in the B1 district for the car use. And I will be making this presentation collectively, basically going through the whole thing at one time, then discussing the proffers, and then discussing the conditions. The property is located on Broad Street Road. It's approximately just shy of 7 acres. It's prime economic development in the Centerville Overlay District, as well as in the designated growth area per the comp plan. So on the vicinity map, as you can see where the red circle is, it is actually the subject property is the farthest east south of Broad that you can get in Goochland County. On the other side is Henrico County. You can sort of see from the aerial, here is the county line, and the property is in red. There is a square box in the middle of the property. That is where the Centerville Booster Station is. It's county utilities. The aerial is a little bit outdated. There's plenty of development that has occurred along Broad Street, as I'm sure you're aware. The zoning for this property is B1. As I mentioned, there are proffers on the property that were placed back in 2015. I'm going to get a little bit more detail as we go forward. Across the street, there is M2. And as I mentioned, there's a number of retail establishments that have opened in the last year or so. And then on the western side, you have M1, which is actually most of that is floodplain. And I mentioned the comprehensive plan. As you can see on the comprehensive plan, there's that blue square that is actually it's public institutional. That is the booster station. It is prime economic development is the designation, and across the street is commercial. So as I mentioned, what they are proposing, they are proposing to do a car dealership. There are existing proffers based on the current owner of the property. They want to retain that as an option to also have the memory care if for some reason the car dealership does not move forward. So that's why this case is being presented as it is. And then in addition to that, the car dealership would need a CUP. I mentioned the three designations in the comprehensive plan. Prime economic development talks about having a positive impact on the county's tax base, retention of corporate investment and attraction, job generating, and to expand the diversity. So based on all of that, these applications are generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. There was a community meeting back in January. Approximately 11 people attended. There were lots of questions and concerns. They included vehicles entering and exiting on Broad Street Road at that location, excuse me, the topography of the site, and the potential impact to Little Tuckahoe Creek, which I had mentioned is just west of the subject property, meeting the regulations of the overlay district, appearance of the parking deck, and nobody actually expressed opposition at the meeting, and one person actually stated they were in support of the applications. Staff has received 2 emails stating concerns. One referenced the height of the parking deck as far as like how it's depicted in the elevation, and questioned that. I will get with the applicant to make sure that that is something that is properly being brought forward to you and the board. Then there was one questioning the results of the traffic impact analysis. So going back to 2015, the conceptual plan is right here, and I'll get into that in a second. They did approve for a memory care, and as you can see on the green in the middle of the conceptual plan, that actually says memory care, and it says like 64 beds. It actually gives specifics to the memory care. It does also lists a number of other uses that are somewhat similar, medical clinic, banks, and money lending institutions. That kind of veers off of it just a little bit. Child and adult daycare centers, homes for the aged, and then nursing homes and other facilities for assisted living. So they are actually, as I mentioned, the current owner would like to retain that. I think the applicant themselves do want to move forward with the car dealership, but, to accommodate either way. And it is something that is already approved. That's why it is placed the way it is. So this is the conceptual plan that was proffered back in 2015, and that also is moving forward with this request. So this is the conceptual plan as far as the car dealership goes. So they will be presenting two different conceptual plan. It's an if this, then that kind of a situation. And I just want to point out a couple of the highlights on this. The red that is on that and the boxes, I added that for clarity. It was kind of hard to see. So as you can see, they have parking along the front portion of the property on close to Broad Street Road. We have the county booster station. Up front, they have a couple of pads. They have 6 pads that have been identified for car display, vehicle display. We have the showroom right here, and then service area, and this right here is a 3-story parking deck. I did want to point out, because we will be talking about this, in the future, part of this presentation, the drive aisle. There is a drive aisle that goes down the property line. This area is Henrico County. This is where the subject property is. There is a drive aisle that goes right along the property line, and I'll discuss that in more detail in a second. So this kind of just gives you a better snapshot of what that area was, what the conceptual plan was. It's basically an engineered drawing. This kind of shows you what it could look like. These are there for image reference only. This is not anything that the applicant is proffering. So you have, these are the area that they talked about where the display would be. So this would be Broad Street Road, parking, along this area. Display, that would be the showroom. And then the vehicle service area, and then the parking garage. And this is where they question whether this was 2 stories or 3. The applicant might be able to clarify that for the record when they come up. So I want to talk a little bit about the existing conditions on the property. As you can see, it is a little bit of a challenging site as far as the topography goes, as well as some of the other infrastructure. So we've got the booster station right here, and then the drive aisle to the booster station comes in right here. Floodplain takes up the back part. As I mentioned, this is all floodplain back here. This blue line is a utility easement that basically cuts through the property, and so on utility easements, there is no construction that's allowed on that. So that basically leaves this area of the site that is constructible. So as I mentioned, I was going to talk a little bit more about the drive aisle. As you can see, in 2015, the conceptual plan shows the drive aisle, so it's already permitted in that location. Back in 2015, they could build that today. And this is what they're proposing on the car dealership, what they are, the second use that they're proposing in the same location. I mentioned it is a little bit of a unique site. It was already approved. There is a provision in the zoning ordinance that does allow the Director of Community Development to make accommodations and, from deviations from the ordinance requirement of 30 feet, which is what they're asking. Based on the fact that it's already been approved in that circumstance, as well as the site area that I showed you, this would be something that would be approvable. This is an administrative act. The applicant is putting it in a form of a proffer being the conceptual plan, just to ensure that if they are approved, they will be able to move forward and get that approval, rather than getting approved and then going to site plan and me saying, no, you can't do it because for whatever reason.
In the these drawings, is the orientation on here the same as?
Yep, they are the same. So let me go ahead and point that for you. I don't know if you can see that, Mr. Myers. This is Broad Street, and this is Broad Street. So we got Broad Street
Broad
Road.
Street now on this drawing is going
Yeah,
north and
yeah,
south.
yeah,
Okay,
the
I
north,
got you.
north, south, and then west is,
Okay, I
on the
got
top part of the screen. East is, heading towards Henrico.
Okay.
Of course. So that is, something I wanted to point out, because the, approval of this would in fact, grant him grant him the ability to build the drive aisle within the buffer. So I did want to also talk a little bit about the overlay district. The property, the entire subject property is within the overlay district. Just as a very quick overview and looking at what the elevations are, as well as the site plan, the conceptual plan, there are a number of things within the application that would not be approved administratively by staff if it came towards us. So we actually suggested that they did not proffer the elevations because the building design, the building materials, on the site plan, the parking area, and orientations of the bay doors, those things would have to be approved by the design review committee. And so that's not something we wanted them to actually proffer. That was just a quick overview. When it gets down to the actual site plan, then there may be additional things that need to be looked at.
From looking at the topo, it looks like this is a relatively steep site from where I can look at the topo and also remember. So there's going to be a lot of excavating done. And whichever of the two buildings they put here are going to be relatively low corresponding to the adjoining apartments in Henrico. So I think there should be some consideration in here for not only what the people in those apartments view and the lighting and roof structures and things like that. There's nothing in here about hours of operation that I can see.
And when I get to the conditions for the, that the county imposes for the conditional use permit, that is actually addressed. There's going to be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. hours of operation that we're
You're in your
imposing.
apartment up high, looking down on this.
And,
Dark sky really doesn't apply to you because the whole area is going to be lit up.
I can let the applicant address that a little bit more. They did provide some drawings within, and I included them in the presentation. I think that might be a good opportunity for them to be able to describe that for you.
How far is this from the existing Audi dealership?
Across the street.
Oh, okay, that's what
Yeah,
I thought.
it's across the street. Not directly across the street. I think directly across the street are the retail, but a little farther west towards 288, that's where the Audi dealership is.
Isn't it unusual to have two of these requests for the same piece of property? I mean,
It is a
that's
little.
kind of what they want to do.
It is a little unusual. I did run this through legal. I think we know the intent of the applicant. They'll be able to speak to that when they come up, but I think that that was part of the property owner wanted to ensure that at least what they've already gone through and had approved is possible. It just did not move forward last time. I guess they think that there might be still some opportunity for them to develop the property without having to go back to the
But we're not here to change the proffers on the nursing home.
no,
This is strictly for the.
No, there are. No, when we get to the proffer summary, I'll be able to show you exactly what it is that all the uses that I showed you in the 2015, those are part of the application. Those proffers as well as the conceptual plan.
Okay, well, I don't have those proffers till you get to them,
Yeah.
but I just want to be sure that the proffers, if they're going to rely on the nursing home proffers in conjunction with new proffers, that the old proffers are applicable to this.
Yes, so that's where the.
A whole new set of new proffers.
Right, and I'll get into that in just a few minutes when I get down to those slides. Let's see, did I already discuss that? Yeah, I already discussed that. So talk a little bit about traffic. So there was a transportation study done, the TIA, and what it recommended is that there was widening at both, at both of the commercial entrances. These are existing entrances. One here, this is actually to the west, and this is to the east, so Henrico County is like right here. They were they were recommended to have those widened. The applicant has agreed to that. They've also agreed to proffering a right turn lane, and that's where that green line is, that green arrow is pointing where that is on the conceptual plan. And then also, as you can see on the conceptual plan, the northern, not northern, excuse me, I just said it myself. The western entrance has an in and an out. So this is two-way traffic that goes in here. So they're going to be improving that to do the two. Whereas at the south, see, now I got me doing it. The one on the bottom of the screen is an egress only. And ingress, thank you, ingress only. Phew, let me recenter. In addition to that, I did want to note that both of the entrances, both the west and the east, do not meet spacing requirements to the light that's just over the line in Henrico. Working with the applicant, we suggested that they move ahead and get those approved prior to moving forward, and they did. VDOT has approved both of those waivers. So where those are located on the conceptual plan, they have been approved by VDOT. So now, Mr. Rockacharlie, I'm going to go through the proffers. I have a summary here. I do have the full proffers at the end of the presentation, so I'd be happy to go through them in more detail. So now I'm going for the proffers. This is what the applicant has offered as part of this application. The conceptual plans for both development, that's the one that has the memory care facility as well as the one that has the car dealership. So both of those are moving forward, along with a combination of both of the proffers. Both of the uses. All the uses that were stated in the that one slide where I went down and I read memory care, bank, home for the aged, all the ones that are listed there are in their proffers. In addition to that, they're also proffering a car dealership. So all of those are listed in one lump sum and both conceptual plans. So if one's done, they use that conceptual plan. If the other's done, they use the other conceptual plan. They've also proffered exterior materials, and in the staff report I mentioned it here again on the screen. Staff recommends that this proffer is not accepted. Some of the materials that are mentioned in those do not meet the overlay district, so we figured that that's probably a moot point to have them in there. It's not. And talking with the applicant today, I believe they will be making the offer to delete that, but I'll leave that to them to discuss. Then there's some other ones that are just sort of your run-of-the-mill basic commercial ones, signage details, limiting like no streamers and things that you sometimes see at car dealerships, screening of HVAC and dumpsters, which is really actually part of the overlay district. As I mentioned, the turn lane, and then the reduction of the buffer. And as I mentioned, that's something that I would normally do administratively. I think they were just being cautious that maybe I was out sick that day and somebody made another call or something along those lines. In addition to that, it is consistent with what's approved in 2015 and could be constructed today. So those are the proffer summary. Now, for the conditional use permit, this is something that the county actually imposes, and this only applies to the car dealership. This is the CUP only. So based on the use being a car dealership, that would be approved with this conditional use permit if it was approved, along with the following conditions. Vehicle maintenance and repair must be in an enclosed building. Vehicle display is limited to the 6 spots that I mentioned earlier on the conceptual plan, and I also showed you on the drawing, as well as in the showroom. No CUP activity would be allowed until a POD was approved, and in order to get a POD approved, you have to have approval of your COA, which is the certificate of approval, which means you comply with the design overlay district, or the design review committee has granted you permission to deviate. Generally conformance with the conceptual plans. It has Exhibit A here. It's actually Exhibit A and B as stated in there. That's a typo. Limited the hours of operation, Mr. Rockacharlie. We did talk with the applicant, and 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. is is acceptable to them. That's something that the county is imposing. They said that that would not interfere with their business. No outside storage, so you can't leave like parts, car parts and things like that outside, obviously. Screening of vehicles waiting repair. The repair condition is actually stated that this is a car dealership with repair secondary, so it's not really a maintenance place, so people will be able to come and, get their warranty work done, things along those lines. Follow all laws. They are providing fencing around the booster station as well as some landscaping. The way, they want to have it look good. I mean, it's fine. It's a utility building, so there's nothing really that aesthetic about it. But in order to screen it from their guests, but also to actually provide some additional security, because as it is now, nobody walks there, but you have customers and they might be wandering, waiting for their car. So they have also been part of this discussion, and they've agreed to put a fence gate as well as some landscaping around the booster station. They will also all lighting and sign regulations would need to be followed, and then the standard transfer or lease. So if they were to sell or lease the property, they would have to notify the county as well as the applicant that these conditions and proffers apply. The commission may hold one public hearing, as you did with Hermitage. One public hearing, may hold one public hearing, but have applications heard and voted on separately with the rezoning going first. Callie told me to say that. I'm available for any questions you have. We also do have the applicant in attendance.
Thank you. Any questions for the? Thank you. We'll come back to you.
I think she's opening the, this is forward, that's backward, that's the pointer.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Mike Rothermel. I'm counsel for the applicant. I'm with the law firm of Spotsvane in Richmond. Pleasure to be here tonight. Want to introduce who's with me. Joey Wong would be the owner and operator of the dealership. I'm going to have him just come up and make a few comments when I'm done. Bill Kimple is with Rainier Construction. Bill would be the project manager. He can speak to any sort of site issues that you have tonight, questions about the site, the layout, the buildings. Bill's built other dealerships. And Carl Holgren is with Grove Slade, traffic engineer, so he can answer any questions regarding the sort of arduous process that my client has already gone through with VDOT. This is a very challenging site. I can't remember which employee from the county coined this term, but they called it sort of an orphan. This property is the lone parcel east of Tuckahoe Creek, still within Goochland County. And so it sort of sits by itself down there in between the creek and the border with Henrico County. And so we started meeting with the county almost a year ago. We had our first meeting with Jamie and staff in September of 2022. And I can tell you that the intervening time period has not been, just sitting around. My client's been working quite a bit. They've gone a long way down the road in sort of architectural design with the anticipation that we're going to have to go to the design review committee. If the board hopefully grants this request. We've also started working on site design, civil drawings, because this site is very challenging. Part of the, and hopefully this clears up some of the questions about some of the two conceptual plans that were proffered. The prior rezoning in 2015 was approved, but the site never went forward. My understanding was involved in that particular proposal. My understanding was the site was too challenging to design. The use was approved and looked at favorably, but when the civil engineers got in there and started designing the site and figuring out where they needed to sort of run utility lines and how they would design the site, the numbers didn't make sense, at least at that time. The concern on the part of the owner, I represent the contract purchaser and applicant in this case. The concern on the part of the owner was if we only proffer, if we get all the previously approved uses out and we only allow an automobile dealership, we get approval from the board, hypothetically, and we move forward, the design review committee doesn't approve the changes, the modifications that we need, and/or site plan falls apart, then there's essentially no approved uses on this site. And so we understood that concern. My client has no intention of moving forward with anything but an automobile dealership. That is what we have worked towards and really designed for the past year before we got to this point. So, why did he work so hard on this site? It's a good site. Location-wise, you have the Audi dealership right across the street. You have a couple of other automotive uses, I think a car wash, an oil change place. We've kept the site east of 288. We understand that this commission and the board has spent a lot of time in looking at the village plans and what you want Centerville to look like. And we understood when we came in that at least staff, the administration, was kind of hoping and looking for auto dealerships to stay east of 288. And so we've done that. And we've taken a site that's got a lot of quirks and a lot of challenges and really put in a use, we believe, that is the highest and best use that could possibly go on this site. We're talking about probably $30 million in improvements that are going to happen here, I think. And Joey can speak to this, but roughly 60 employees probably. It would be a challenge to put something else on this site that would sort of make that investment and bring that employment and bring the taxes that this particular use would bring. So with that, I'll ask Joey to come up. He just wants to make a couple of brief remarks, but then we're happy to answer any questions that commissioners may have.
Good evening. My name is Joey Huang, and I know you don't really know me, but I just wanted to give a quick introduction. I'm a dentist. I graduated from dental school at Ohio State University. I'm a car dealer now for 25 years. I really love the business. This would be my 4th Honda dealership. I've grown with Honda and other manufacturers by being some of the best dealers in the country. I share that story with you because this process has taken some time. It's been a little bit tough, right? Not only is the facility or the grounds hard to build on, but this process has been tougher. But what I'll have to say is this, after sitting here near a year, is that I understand it's because you care, right? And that's exactly who I am. I do care about what I do. You don't go from being a dentist to being a car dealer unless you work with your heart and do it the right way. And, I sit in front of you to share with you that if we are able to build a dealership here, it will be the best dealership for you. I'm going to be a wonderful Honda dealership, a wonderful person in your community, and I look forward to it. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Mr. Wong, what's your address?
6546 Cheswick Lane, Hudson, Ohio.
You live in Ohio. Where are your 4 dealerships that you have already?
This would be the 4th Honda dealership, but our Honda dealerships are in Akron, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, and Syracuse, New York.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does the commission have any questions at this time? I would reserve just a couple minutes for rebuttal in case we need that.
Well, I guess I cannot. My concern is the fact, the way this topography is, you're going to be so low. How are we going to screen from the apartments that are in the opposite county? We do care about them, but, they got people living in these apartments, looking down on rooftops of air conditioning equipment, fans, exhaust. I've designed a couple of dealerships, and I know all the stuff that goes up on the roof to make those things work. And also, I'm concerned about the lighting. People living in their apartments, you're on the backside of their apartments, and that's where they sleep, and they probably have balconies that look out over the area. And I'm concerned about it may meet the dark sky that we have, basically from ground level. But what does it look like when you're, and I don't know, I guess the top of the upper floor of these apartments is probably 30 or 40 feet above the roof of these buildings. So I'm just wondering how that's going to.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll let Mr. Kimple address a little bit. I'll make some general comments on this because we've had a lot of discussions with the staff on this particular issue. You know, those adjacent residential units there are, I think, 3, maybe 4 stories. I mean, they're very tall. And so, you know, whatever use goes on this particular property, they're going to see. We've proffered to the county or told the county that we're going to do what we can along the border as far as screening. Most of that would be from street level. You know, so if you're parking there or you're walking, you wouldn't, you know, the screening would be there. You know, we can't erect 30-foot high buffers there. And I guess the other thing I would say, and Bill can add to this, you know, they've already sort of gone to great length in working with the architects to come up with certain materials and other ways to make the parking deck in the building as attractive as they can. So, you know, we have gone to great lengths to sort of address those, not without significant expense to Mr. Wong if this moves forward. But is there anything else you would
No,
add?
actually, you hit a lot of it. A lot of it, as you mentioned earlier, being that we are lower.
Would you speak in the mic?
Of course. Bill Kemple with Rainier Construction. As Mike had mentioned, a lot of the challenges, no matter what facility is going to be placed here, is going to be just that. You're going to be always lower than the adjacent properties. I think some of the advantages that we have for those properties is they all are facing to the north. So a lot of their windows will not be facing to the west. But to take care of some challenges that we've been working with the staff over the last year are, you know, we will have a retaining wall between the property along with a 6-foot fence along that, again, for screening from height level. And then to make it aesthetically pleasing, we're looking at different materials to try to screen the garage with some perforated metal panels on that eastern half. Most of that rest of the building will be a good-looking building with combination of, you know, some metal panels and concrete. As far as lighting, almost all the lighting will be down lighting. We wouldn't have any really up lighting. So we would just have filtration, you know, coming down.
I guess the other thing I would add, you know, the parking structure, you know, most dealerships, you have sort of a sea of cars, right, in the back. I mean, we really think, you know, and now the site dictates that you need a garage in this case. But we also think that, you know, aesthetically, that's probably more appealing than a sea of cars. And that garage is not insignificant. What, $10 million? Cost probably for the garage. And I guess the other thing I would point out here, as far as the reason, one of the reasons this site is so challenging, and I guess if I can here. So you've got the county's pump station up here, but then you also have this Henrico County sewer line. I'm not very good with a pointer, but it sort of runs through the property here. It's that, you know, yellow line that runs through the middle. So Henrico County has an easement for their sewer line that sort of bisects this property. So it really restricts where you can put the buildings. So that's, you know, that's part of why we've had to, you know, design the site the way it has been. So that, to answer those questions.
To our south that we don't want to disturb also.
None of the renderings that we have here really show the site as it is with the apartments, the slope of the hill, and, you know, exactly what the elevation is going to look like.
Yeah, so let me see if I can.
I didn't throw the cross elevations in this.
Yeah, I think Jamie has it. Do you have the?
Do you have the cross elevations? Yeah. We have some cross sections showing that elevation challenge, as you mentioned earlier.
We don't have that.
They're in the staff report. They're in the staff report for you, but here they are. Maybe you all could describe that a little bit.
You want to walk through?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how to work this. I apologize. As you can visually see on your right-hand side. Oh, okay, sorry. as you can visually see on the right-hand side. Here's the defining line with Henrico and Goochland County. You can see here, is that opposite? It looks backwards to me. Okay, sorry. So we have the parking deck here and then the buildings, the apartments on the left-hand side. And so we have a retaining wall with a screening that you can see with vehicles that be sitting here. The screening would be higher than what the vehicles would be. And then a view looking through that cross-section from Henrico looking into Goochland at the building would be the view from the residents over there.
Well, the screen wall doesn't do much good for the apartments.
Mr. Rockcharlie, I guess.
I'm not sure what you're screening.
Well, you can only, the screening is mainly at ground level. I mean, that's really what you can accomplish. I guess the other thing I'd point out is the adjacent development, the adjacent development in Henrico County, has commercial in the front. That was all, approved as part of that. So the residential that is, sort of right there off of Broad Street, is part of their sort of mixed-use philosophy out there, mixed in amongst the commercial that's right in front of it. So, this is a commercial corridor, and, we're trying to do what we can for the adjacent high-rises, but there's only so much you can do.
The car on the left is in Henrico,
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
and the wall of your parking, is that gonna be a solid wall?
Yes.
Yes.
So there won't be any openings in it for ventilation or anything, it'll be a solid wall?
Oh, the building?
Yeah.
That's correct. The parking garage will not be solid, it'll be a perforated panel.
Is that gonna be all that, well?
This
if that's
section.
allowed by our overlay
Yeah,
ordinance.
this section right here, we have to go through COA. So this section right here would be, is proposed to be a perforated panel to not see the vehicles within the parking structure. This is a little older, actually, we're gonna take a solid wall back a little bit further in the newest renditions that take this back behind service a little bit more, so there'll be less perforated panels on the design that's going into for COA approval later.
That probably would be approved. No. You got any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Just a technicality, we are happy to withdraw that proffer regarding the architectural materials. I think staff asked that we withdraw that. We obviously wanted to be completely transparent in the materials that we hope to use. We recognize some of those need to go through design review committee, and that's what we plan on doing. But if staff wants us to withdraw, I think it's proffer number 4, we're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, open it up for public comment.
Good evening. My name is Larry Page, 1614 Genito Road. I currently own 7 automobile dealerships in Richmond, and one of them is the Audi dealership down the street. I also own West Broad Honda, and what I have compiled is the amount of truck traffic, customer traffic, deliveries, tractor trailers that we encounter during normal business days. And as a resident of 34 years and the owner of the Audi property, I'm concerned about the amount of traffic, the amount of U-turns that tractor trailers are going to make to try to get back to 64. The applicant, being a new Honda dealer, will be given extra product for opening a new dealership. So I think his numbers might exceed ours, but you can look at the pre-COVID numbers. I think his dealership will be similar in size and volume, and it's an extraordinary amount of traffic. UPS trucks, FedEx trucks, stock order trucks. We get a daily stock order, and let me know if you have any questions of me.
Well, you obviously have a lot of experience in.
Yes, sir. not being a controlled intersection, I think we're going to create a problem that we won't be able to fix.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
If I may briefly just call Carl Holkren up, he's our traffic engineer, just to address Mr. Page's concerns.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Carl Holtgren with Grove Slade and Associates. We're the traffic engineering firm on the project. Address is 4951 Lakebrook Drive, Glen Allen. So we did the traffic study, and the trip potential of the project of the dealership is based on Institute of Transportation Engineer trip rates, which are published and used around the country. They're based on traffic counts that have been done at existing dealerships all over the country. So what we do is we plug in the size of the dealership, and the trip rates predict how many vehicles will be in and out on a daily basis, and also during the peak hours, the morning and the PM peak hours. And those trip rates include all vehicles, employees, customers, delivery trucks, the mailman, everything. And that's what our traffic study's been based on. And we've worked very closely with VDOT. VDOT has approved the traffic study. VDOT has approved the access plan that was discussed earlier with the right-in, right-out entrance on the west side and the east driveway being right-in only. The driveways are designed for large trucks to get in and out safely. The civil engineer has run a program called Auto Turn, which runs the vehicle path of the WB 67, the large truck, to make sure that the truck can completely get in and out of both, or in and out of the west driveway and in to the east driveway safely within the curb, and they can get back out onto West Broad without interrupting traffic. In terms of U-turns, I would expect that the inbound trucks would come in from 288 and make the right turn in. If they turn right out, they can easily get, once just travel through Short Pump to get to the interchange to get back to 64 or 295, wherever they're going, without making a U-turn. So I think that's all I had to say in response to that. If there are any other traffic questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I assume you haven't seen his traffic count numbers?
Not
Of the
until just
actual
now.
dealership, so.
Correct.
Any questions?
Most dealerships have, for lack of better terms, a test drive route, How is the dealership going to have that without creating too much crossing traffic, if you will, for lack of better terms? I mean, the only way out of the dealership really is a right to head east towards Henrico County.
Correct. Yeah, and the reason the east driveway is right-in only, VDOT did not want us to have the right turn out because it was too close to the traffic signal at Bon Secours. The fear was that people exiting at the east driveway would kind of shoot across to make the U-turn at Bon Secours. That's why all the outbound trips are back at the west driveway. So there's more room to exit the property and get over, to make a U-turn or turn left if you need to, or just continue down. I mean, there are a number of medium breaks and traffic signals along West Broad where U-turns can be made. You don't have to do it at Bon Secours. You can do it there's another one, you can go down to the Wegmans, make a U-turn. In terms of the test drive route, I mean, I can't really speak to that. There'll be different routes that people will take on test drives. But the site is easily accessible from the eastbound direction.
But westbound, it's not accessible.
So from the west, most drivers would probably come down to Wilkes Ridge and make a U-turn at that light to get back over. But we're talking about, this is a relatively low traffic generator in the big scheme of things. In the AM peak, we're anticipating about 60 vehicles per hour, and that's combined in and out. So that's about one vehicle per minute, either entering or exiting the site. In the PM peak hour, it's a little bit higher. It's about 80 cars in an hour, 80 cars in 60 minutes. So it's not, this will not generate a whole lot of traffic turning in and out, especially for a project this size.
Compared to the already approved uses, it's gonna generate a fair amount more than those.
Than the memory care facility. Most likely, I haven't run that comparison, so I can't speak exactly to it, but it would probably be more than a memory care facility, but not significantly more.
But a lot more truck traffic versus a memory care unit.
Yeah, a memory care unit probably generates 0 truck traffic. Yeah, so I believe a dealership like this, and maybe Joey can speak to this better than I can, but it's probably 1 to 2 trucks per day of deliveries, I would imagine. Is that? Yeah, so, and, they're not all gonna happen during the peak travel times. I mean, the deliveries can be made during off-peak times, middle of the day when traffic is lighter. And we work very closely with VDOT to make sure that the access points are wide enough, that the curb radii are large enough so that the trucks can, especially at the west driveway, that a truck can turn out, make the right turn out, and go into the outside lane without encroaching into the middle lane at all. That was one of their big concerns, and we've designed it to do that. And of course, on-site, the truck can get wherever it needs to go.
But unless the truck is coming from the west heading east, they have to make a U-turn in order to get into the
True.
facility.
That's probably a pretty unlikely scenario. I imagine the drivers will be routed to, approach from 288 and make the U-turn, from wherever they're coming from regionally, take 288 to Broad Street, take the exit so they can turn right in without making a U-turn.
And when they leave,
Right.
they would have to make a U-turn.
Not necessarily. They could turn right out and get down to the 64 interchange without making a U-turn. Or they could make, a standard left turn at Wegmans, route back around through that, and then turn right out at Bon Secours. I mean, there's ways to do it without making a U-turn. And again, that's 1 or 2 trucks per day. So it won't be a frequent occurrence.
You say trucks, are you just talking about carriers?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. They can carry, 6, 7, 8 cars at a time.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for the applicant. I guess, it's been stated that the site has a lot of difficulty.
It's challenging.
Challenging.
Yeah.
Why the site?
It's a good site. I mean, it's, like I said, you've got a dealership right across the street, you've got other automotive uses right across the street, the proximity to 288. You've got the future Gate Road interchange maybe. So it's a good site, and it meets the county's criteria. What we were told is, stay east of 288 if you want to do an auto dealership, and there aren't too many sites left east of 288. So it's, there's reasons why my client's gone through the effort for this site. He likes the site.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a tough site to make this thing fit into. I'd much rather have seen the memory care unit there that we voted on a few years ago.
And they're wanting to keep the memory care as an option.
Yeah.
Great.
What's going to determine when you pull the trigger on this versus going to the memory care?
Well, so my client's working on both the architecturals that they will need to submit. And our plan is to actually try to submit those in the next couple weeks, so that if in fact the board approves the applications, that we would go very soon thereafter to the design review committee. And they're also working on civil drawings as well. Now, I will say, we've spent a lot of time going through site issues with not just Ms. Sherry and her staff, but, other departments within the county, working on a lot of different site issues. But that's really, as long as we get, as long as my client gets the approval, this COA, from the Design Review Committee and site plan approval, I mean, he's locked in. He's already invested quite a bit on this site. He's really anxious for moving forward. So we have zoning, we have Design Review Committee, and we have site plan, all of which we're working on sort of simultaneously, concurrently, so that we can hopefully move this forward.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Can I make another comment? Can I speak again?
If you wish.
The numbers that I put together for you are extraordinarily busy. Probably shouldn't say that way, but I can't say that this is going to be a low traffic project. And if I'm driving a tractor trailer, and yesterday at West Broad Honda, we got 2 tractor trailer loads and 1 car came off of each tractor trailer. If I'm taking a right and then I got to drive through Short Pump at Christmas time to get back on 64, I'm going to make a U-turn where the quickest way back to the interstate to deliver the rest of my product. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll close the comment period. What's the board wishes?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. The comprehensive plan does specify that automobile dealerships.
So the comprehensive plan for the prime economic development designation, that was placed there when this property was part of West Creek. So in part of the rezoning and also with the area of the Notch, I mean, it doesn't say that you cannot have retail in there. There's different breweries and things within that area already. So it's generally consistent is how it's stated. I mean, the original designation was for economic development, similar to what is proposed for West Creek. And I went through those in the presentation. Job generating, investment, could attract other types of businesses. So in general, it is consistent with it.
The statement was made that the Centerville Village Plan, of course, it hadn't been approved yet, so it doesn't necessarily prohibit dealerships.
No, that's correct. I mean, it doesn't prohibit them, yeah, as we know, Mr. Page is right across the street. That area has a number of retail and and I think the applicant even stated when we met back in September, it pretty much is in our current policy that, we discourage car dealerships on the other side of 288. This side is something that could be considered. It's not written in stone anywhere, it's just sort of, direction we've been given.
Well, it's a tough site, especially butting right up to Henrico County. And the fact that there are residential units along that, if this was in Goochland and we had residential units that close to it, I think that would be a hard sell.
I think my biggest issue with it is ingress or egress, and ingress with truck traffic.
Henrico doesn't dictate what we do here in Goochland County.
Yeah, they could do the same thing to us.
Well, trust me, they'll do it if it's convenient to them.
Well, I like being a good neighbor.
I don't have anything to add.
Gentlemen, before we go, we've been talking a lot, so just a reminder, we're going to take two separate votes, the rezoning first. And if I understood the applicant correctly, on the rezoning case, they had offered to remove proffer number 4. This is on page 129 of your packet. So if there was an approval motion, it would be as amended if you were accepting the removal of proffer number 4, which is the one for the building materials, which staff had commented wouldn't be appropriate because that's what they need to go to the design review committee for.
Right.
I move that the commission recommend approval of proffer amendment RZ 2023-00008 at 12,501 Broad Street Road as presented.
Is removed. Is there a second?
Can it be recommended as presented, or it has to be with the amendment?
Well, if you want to accept the applicant's offer to remove proffer number 4, then you would say as amended.
Okay, let me rephrase this. I move that the commission recommend approval of proffer amendment RZ 2023-00008 at 12,501 Broad Street Road as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Has it been recommended and seconded that the first case be approved with the deletion of the one proffer? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Want to do a roll call vote? Mr. Duke?
Aye.
Mr. Brewer?
No.
Mr. Rockacharlie?
No.
Mr. Myers?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson, we have a tie vote.
Gentlemen, per the Planning Commission bylaws and rules of procedure, item 2.6.4 tie vote. The first tie vote on any motion to approve or deny an item will result in no action having been taken on the item, and another motion is in order. However, if no other motion is passed on the item will automatically be deferred to the next commission meeting for further consideration and a second vote. If another tie vote occurs at the second meeting, that would be next month, then the item is defeated, and if it requires a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, a tie vote would be reported. But for tonight, another motion would be in order, if you think another motion would pass. Otherwise, it will automatically be scheduled for, what month are we in? September.
September.
Yep.
September 7th.
7th, thank you.
Do you hear another motion? We're voting on the first,
Rezoning.
the rezoning.
And we don't vote on the second one if the first one doesn't pass, right?
We should vote, we have to vote on that as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, they are complementary. In their recommendations, so I think you would take a vote on both. Good question.
I don't think you can vote on it. I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you mean in the same night? Yeah, if the rezoning isn't moving forward,
So,
you wouldn't take up this, yeah.
right.
But it is complicated. We do need to take a vote on the second case. I assume it would be the same vote, but we should go through the motion.
So we don't have enough.
But we're still on the first case. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea. Mr. Coleman said you could move to defer the CUP instead of taking a vote, depending on how the first one turns out, to just keep them lined up together.
Do we have another motion, sorry, Mr. Chairman, do we have another motion for the rezoning, or are we staying with the tie for now?
So if we had a motion to defer to what, on this vote, what does that do? I mean, if we have a tie vote, we're
They'll be
kicking the
heard
can
together.
for a month.
And Mr. Patak will be back.
We need a motion to defer, or are we?
Yes.
Is,
If we're
it,
moved on.
Okay. I move that the commission defer consideration of, this is for the, this is.
Conditional use permit.
Yeah, this is what it's, that's what I thought. I move that the commission defer consideration of conditional use permit CU -2023 -00010 for automobile sales and automobile repair at 12501 Broad Street Road to the next planning commission date.
That's acceptable. I'd like to just clarify that we're done with the rezoning case. There was no further motion, and that ended in a tie vote, and it will be deferred to September automatically. So now we're moving on to the conditional use permit, and a motion has been made to defer that also to the September meeting.
I'll second that on the conditional use permit deferral.
All those in favor, want to do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. On the motion to defer, Mr. Duke?
aye.
Mr. Brewer?
Aye.
Mr. Rockacharlie?
Aye.
Mr. Myers?
Aye.
The motion to recommend deferral passes on a 4-0 vote.
Is there any further business?
Yes, sir. We have no old business. We do have one item of other business, which is the village plans update.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Jamie Sherry, Director of Community Development. For those in the audience and for the commission, I know I've mentioned this at our previous meeting, our pre-meeting. The Centerville Small Area Plan will be heard at the Board of Supervisors this upcoming Monday at 6 p.m. The location of that public hearing will be this room. And that's really all I have to announce. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Will there be any revisions to it based on the citizens' comments we've had?
The same plan that was brought to the Planning Commission will be brought to the Board of Supervisors, along with, any discussion that came from the community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Being no further business, meeting adjourned.
That's a tough case.
Good project going place, I think, but it's tough.
I think is, what other project can you do, and who's gonna be willing to put the money?